Record. All right. Good morning and welcome to the Employability Skill Series, where we explore the top skills employers are looking for in candidates. Each week, we will cover a different topic with thoughts and insights from professionals in a variety of industries. I'm your Megan. I am your host, Megan Morrow, Senior Associate of Experiential Learning and Employer Relations, and I have Alex Dry, Senior Sales and Events Supervisor at Visit Central Florida Sports as my guest. And today we will be discussing the importance of a strong work ethic in the workplace. Alex Dry is a dynamic sports management professional with a strong background in business and sports events coordination, a proud graduate of Florida State University with a bachelor's of science in business management and a minor in economics. Alex continued his education at Florida Southern College, go Mocs, where he earned his master's of business administration with a concentration in esports management. With experience spanning multiple sectors of the sports industry, Alex has held roles with the Florida State University baseball program, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Perfect Game Baseball, IMG Academy, and several other prominent sports organizations. These experiences brought him to his current role, where he serves as a senior sales and events supervisor at Visit Central Florida Sports. A Winter Haven native, Alex returned to Polk County to apply his extensive experience in sports management to benefit his hometown. In his current role, he oversees the recruitment and service of baseball and softball events that generate tourism for the region. With more than 100 baseball and softball events held annually throughout Polk County, Alex is passionate about seeing the positive impact these events have on their local community. Alex and his wife Ellie are excited to raise their son Charlie and their pup Bodie, surrounded by family, friends, and the supportive community in Polk County. So good morning, Alex. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
No, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So tell us just a little bit more about yourself, your journey, how you got this place and into this place, and like what you like about it, and then we're going to go into like what actually is work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey over my technically short career thus far has really been all over the place. It's taken me from organization to organization. Um, Took a lot of different internships while I was in college, and then postgraduate was just trying to find my path. And it has led me here back to Polk County, as you mentioned there, my back to my hometown, and getting to bring everything that I liked about every one of my jobs, somewhat all together. So everybody really likes to talk about purpose and what's your drive. I have been able to take a lot of my experiences and put it into a greater purpose, but it was not necessarily a straight path here. And I think that's the case almost in any business, but especially in the sports world, there is definitely no one path traveled to get to where you want to go. So I've had a great experience thus far in my postgraduate life, and got to uh, go to Florida Southern this last year and get my MBA. So that was a new adventure for me before we welcomed our son into the world. But yeah, so I'm happy to be a Knoll, happy to be a mock, and happy to take all of those experiences into the professional world.
That's awesome. I think it's important too for our students to hear, like it's not always a straight path. I think sometimes they get a little anxious, like I don't know what I want to do, or I'm not really sure. And it's perfectly understandable. Like most of the people that I talk to, they started out in one way and then something happened. Like even me, like my first jobs out of college, I worked in psychiatric facilities, in county jail, and in prison. I have to preface, I was always a professional, never a resident. I was never there in that capacity. But so like teaching, I kind of fell into it. And I've been doing that now for 20 years. So sometimes that happens and it's like the best thing that could possibly happen for you, you know. So I thank you for sharing your story. So yeah, so let's talk about work ethic. What exactly is that? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's one of those just terms that you always hear, but it's one of those that, in my opinion, that's extremely hard to describe. It's easier to see it, and in my opinion, those who have work ethic and those who don't, that's what separates the good from the great. One of the books I love to read is Grit by Angela Duckworth. And I think her overall book of just like being a gritty person is a very evident fact of being someone with high work ethic. And that grit is so many people are constantly worried about talent. And one of the ways that she defines that is talent times effort equals skill, and skill times effort equals achievement. And I think a big portion of that comes down to that work ethic because anybody can be born with the talent. You can develop that into a skill, but unless you continue to work at that and really push hard, you're not going to find that achievement. And I think that's one of the easiest ways to see that result. Like the achievement that comes from work ethic is more evident than someone who is just a really hard worker. And a big portion of that is just being someone that is gritty, someone that is willing to work hard, someone that has the passion for what they're doing, that they're willing to burn the midnight oil if necessary, if they're willing to get to work and not dilly dally and make sure that the things on their to do list get done. So that was as I prepared for this conversation, I continue to look back like what truly is work ethic and how do I see it? And the greatest part of it is it constantly brings up a lot of memories throughout my career of what are those defining moments of who does have that work ethic and who doesn't. And I think almost everyone is able to define that themselves, especially by looking within and looking at others of, okay, who is having success? And work ethic is one of those values that is absolutely essential in finding that success.
Yeah, this is such a good topic because, a lot of employers are talking about the college grads coming out now don't really have this work ethic, and whether that be that they were impacted by COVID, where things really shifted and then everybody was remote and then there wasn't a whole lot of accountability when they went back, whether they could be hybrid or come back to school or be remote. And then, and then the transition into college life and stuff like that. So I think this is really important because that work ethic, and I also like how you talked about it, it's not really just the same as working hard, being a hard worker. There's more to it, to actually giving your all, being, the buy-in into the mission and vision of the company, being fully present is all part of that work ethic. And then wanting to be there. You talked about burning the midnight oil. That sometimes the day doesn't end right at 5 o'clock. And you have to be willing to go that extra step. But I also want to make sure that we also preface that not to be a doormat and you're the only one always having to stay there. But that does go noticed by employers, the ones that aren't just looking at the time clock or not just saying, hey, that's not my job, but those that are willing to dive in and help where needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a large portion of that, and I oversee our internship program here at Central Florida Sports, and I'm kind of in that fringe point between I feel like I'm getting older now, but compared to a lot of the people that are in charge of hiring, I'm still somewhat in my youthful years. So um, being able to somewhat bridge that gap and seeing the baby boomers and seeing the way that they work, and then also now seeing the the millennials younger than myself and the Generation Z, and as our baby boomer director loves to call them Zers or Zillennials. And it's interesting to see that dynamic between those different generation gaps. And everyone does have what makes them unique. But I see it myself, and I try not to be a person who's in one generation criticizing another. But there's definitely a qualified understanding of, okay, what does it take to be a successful person in the workplace? And sometimes that's just being in a workplace and understand we've had new grads start here before who just don't know how to operate in your general workplace. And it, not only because they were a COVID grad, but they had never really held any positions in the past. They were just a lifetime student and they graduated with their MBA and still came out into the world and didn't necessarily know what to do on a day-to-day basic interacting with others, being the person that can be accounted on. I think that really the only experience they had at that point was group projects, which any student knows has a varying degree of success. So,
Yeah, the majority of the students on the call are my students in the class, and I'm sure they're feeling that because in their business 1115 class, they're doing the Shark Tank project. So yeah, they have to work together in a group. But you kind of made a distinction, and I want to make sure that we kind of really hit it home. Like, not all college grads, not, we're not stereotyping this generation. We're not saying that all Zers are like this. By no means are we saying that. So I want to make sure that we're Alex and I are very clear about that. But we know that we are seeing a good percentage that are just not quite prepared. Whether that was, all they did was go to school, because sometimes that is what our students are doing. They go straight from, if they're a traditional student, they go straight from, high school to college to possibly an MBA. And then now they have the first time to go out in the workplace. So that's where I think our internships are super important. Externships, job shadowing, going to the tours, meeting with employers to start to get that expectation of what it's supposed to be like when you move on past the college years. So developing that strong work ethic is paramount, because ed is just a cringy buzzword that everybody throws around, like teamwork or multitasking. Like anybody can say it, but how do you demonstrate it? So when you're looking at your interns, or you're looking at people that you work with, Alex, like what characteristics of somebody who has a really strong work ethic, what are those characteristics that jump out at you?
yeah, no, and it's obviously, like you said, every single person that comes out is different, and we look for different unique values because our social media intern is going to be different than our operations intern.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be varying degrees of qualities that you must have for different types of jobs in the world. And but the things that really stick out are, like I said earlier, grit, the ability to kind of bounce back if necessary, that ability to take feedback and understand, hey, it's not personal. I am an individual that can take feedback, and I have the grit to bounce back and make that adjustment to grow. Um, Additionally, I think reliability is one of the most important, reliability and accountability. Understanding that when you join a team, it's not just you. As a student, for the most part, you can really get by just as looking over numero uno and thinking, hey, I'm going to make sure I get my grades. I'm going to make sure I get my jobs done. Even in group projects, you can still typically scoot by. In the workforce, you have to be reliable. You have to be accountable because there's other people depending on you to get your job done, especially as an entry level worker. You're often reporting to several other people, and you have to be able to work with different segments and different sectors of your organization and be counted on, because the more you're able to be counted on, the more jobs you're going to be given, the more tasks you're going to be given, and that's how you really grow. So that accountability and reliability is extremely valuable. When we see that within our student interns, we know we can continue to give more and more and more, and they run with it. Um, and I mean, the consistency to that as well. It's being able to show up day in, day out and get that done. Because as a student intern, or as a student, you might have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, or you might have Tuesday, Thursdays. Once you get into the workforce and into your internships, where not only are you balancing your class schedule, maybe another job, and now an internship, how can you bring that same energy consistently and be successful? And it's not a, hey, I had a really long night last night, I'm not going to be a successful person this morning. Every day you have to come in and show up and show out, and that's extremely valuable.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely. Especially like school is we're trying to prepare our students for, the real world. And I see this a lot. And I mean, we all have things that we're going through. I mean, you have a brand new baby who, you're and your wife are dealing with, not getting full amounts of sleep, and your life is revolving around this tiny human that is completely dependent on you, but like you said, you still come to work. And I notice sometimes with our students, like they won't even reach out. I'll notice that somebody's been missing from class for like 3 or 4 class periods in a row. And so then I have to go reach out and say, hey, what's going on? Like, you're supposed to be in class. Oh, sorry, I'm going through something. It's like, well, okay, that doesn't work though in the real world. You don't get to just no call, no show and then expect to have a job when you get there. If you are going through something, we all are. All of us are at all times. If some are just more intense than others, but I like that you have to keep showing up. You have to keep going through, whether you're going through something or not. I mean, if you're going through something that's so big that you can't physically come to work, then maybe you need to consider taking some time, because your team is depending on you. And when you don't show up, then other people have to pick up that slack. And so I think that's a huge point that you made about needing to make sure that you are showing up. I also like that you're talking about accountability because you're given a task, and you're required and expected to do it. And if your boss can't rely on you, then it's going to go to someone else. And that other person who is reliable and accountable is going to be the one that's going to get the promotions, get the pay raises, or go from an internship to a full-time job offer, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's where and even those who do show up, if they're not all in and they're not showing out, if they're just showing up and like you mentioned earlier, just kind of watching the clock, that is something that, again, work ethic is something that you can see in someone, and everyone is aware. And every single person's been on a team at some point or another, and they're very aware of who has that work ethic and who doesn't. And a big part of that, like again, is that reliability, accountability. If others can't rely on you and be expect that you will be accountable for your actions, I've had situations in the past where different people among our team, not here at Business Central Florida, but in past jobs where like silent quitting, it's a buzzword now, and
Yeah.
it has come out of COVID, I think, but it happened within our organization before COVID even happened. And that silent quitting is something where people come and they show up, they're still at the office, but that work ethic that they just don't have and they're not willing to put in the effort is contagious, and it has negative effects throughout the entire organization.
Mhm.
And so even if they're still showing up, if they're not putting that work in, if even in the school level, if you're falling asleep in class, or if you're going to your internship and you're not trying to get the most out of it, taking a opportunity, taking every advantage out of those opportunities, it's very evident, and it's detrimental to your growth. So,
Yeah, definitely. There's a difference between showing up and being present. So for
mhm.
sure. And I see that too. And I mean, sometimes I don't know what my students are always thinking, but they'll be in class and I can see them. They're like watching movies or watching, a sporting event like on their laptop, or they'll have their earbuds in. And I'm kind of like cocking my head to the side, like, do you honestly think you're going to go into a board meeting and just pull up your phone and sit there and play games on your phone or watch lacrosse on your laptop while your boss is giving you, a debriefing? So these are things that we need to check ourselves and make sure that we're not just physically present, but that we're mentally and emotionally present, because that does get noticed. I wanted to ask you if you had a specific instance, or if you had an example of when someone didn't have a really strong work ethic and maybe how that negatively impacted you or the organization.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's happened at different points in my career, and sometimes people go through ruts and they come out of it. There's other times that that individual basically everyone sees the writing on the wall that they are they are have one foot out the door. And there's been probably two or three different times in my career that I've seen this firsthand of somebody has their foot out the door and immediately that person becomes, not only are they just not there, they're not in that position, but there's negative effects on everyone else within the workplace. So when that person has their foot out the door, if they are quiet quitting or silent quitting, now not only can I don't feel confident that I can task them with anything. I can't ask them for help because it's like, okay, hey, they don't have the work ethic. I can't even give them anything. So now the work that I'm supposed to be able to share with others on my team and that we're supposed to work together on, I cannot ask for that help from that individual because I know the job is not going to get done up to the standards of our organization, of those who are continuing to uphold the values of that organization. And A players like to play with A players, and that's a huge portion of it. And a lot of times management has a hard time with those underperformers because one thing I've learned is it's very hard to get fired in the real world. people do not like to fire people.
No.
So there's a lot of times where you will have poor performers on your team. And for the poor performers, I think they think, all right, well, I'm not going to get fired. I can just kind of hang out for a while. But if those people start to realize how much of a detriment they are to the rest of their team, to their peers, that's where it really it spreads that negative effect. Other people see, okay, well, they're not carrying their weight. Why should I have to carry my weight?
Yeah.
And those who are extremely high performers, who are going to, no matter what, they're going to kill themselves to make sure that job gets done. They're going to burn themselves out because now they're looking at others thinking that person's getting paid the same as me every day to show up. They're not doing anything, and I'm doing my job and
Yeah.
theirs. So not only is their tasks not being done correctly, but now the other people on the team are also starting to feel those negative effects, and it's one of the worst things for team camaraderie is if the one bad egg on your team can really lead to that just negative energy within the organization.
Yeah, that's there's a saying and I love it. Negativity breeds negativity. And once you kind of start going down that spiral, it's really difficult to pull yourself back up. So best just to not even get into that. And so my best advice for our students on the call, um, don't get wrapped up in the gossip. Don't get wrapped up in the negativity. Just separate yourselves from it. Do not, because it also too, like if you think that you're in a safe space and you're going into that negative spiral, you think that you can say things and it's not going to get back to somebody. It will. It will absolutely. Everything that you say, somebody hears it and it's going to be repeated at some point in time. So you have to protect your peace and protect your positivity by not going into that negative breeds negativity piece. And it does really bring down the organization because, yeah, I don't want to be grinding, coming in all day, every day, and then having to maybe pick up all the slack from my team if they're choosing not to do what they need to do. And I still have to do my job, and now I have to do part of your job and part of your job and part of your job. It makes it to the point where, like, yeah, burnout. Like, you get burned out. But not just that, you're burning bridges because you're not going to be able to use me as a reference, or I'm not going to write a letter of recommendation for someone who is causing me burnout and someone that is not contributing to the team, or I have to pick up your weight. There's no way. So, I mean, to me, that's just burning bridges, which I consider to be professional suicide when you burn bridges.
Absolutely. And it's every organization that I've worked for, and I tell all of our interns this, I have very rarely truly been the one reaching out for jobs, and your reputation precedes you. And when there's jobs that are come available and you seem to be a good fit, and somebody will think of you before they see the job, you want them to think of you. And everybody always says it's all about who you know.
Yes.
I kind of think it's the opposite. I truly think it's all about who knows you.
Yes.
And if people know you and know that you have that great work ethic, when they see a job opportunity that they think would be a good fit for you, they call you and they call the employer and say, hey, I have a match already. And that makes it so easy to have success in the field. But those who do not have that good work ethic, not only are they not getting recommended for jobs that they're not looking at, so they're going to miss so many opportunities. But people are very hesitant to give a good recommendation because if I give a good recommendation, that's my word on the line, and I'm not.
Mhm.
It's very difficult for me to solely soil my word for someone who hasn't put the work ethic in. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
very important to make sure other people know that about you.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely love that because that just happened on our team. We had an opening and there was a woman that was in a different department, but we'd been basically hallmates for the last 2 years. I mean, and I've worked really closely with her. And as soon as that position came available, I reached out to her, just like you're saying, like, hey, have you ever thought about working in career services? It's a completely different shift from what you're doing, but would you be interested? And she really was. And now she's part of our team. So it was absolutely awesome. But, I had to put my name, my backing against her. So it was my reputation on the line when I went to my team and said, this person I think is a prime candidate. I really want you guys to, consider her. And so, of course, she, did not fail me at all. And she's now thriving on our team. But that's something that our students need to understand. And it's not just in the workplace or the internship, it's also in your classes, when you're coming to class all day and you're contributing to the discussions, you're actively listening, you're participating, you're staying after and talking with your professors, and you're going to events and going to advising appointments and getting to know all the people around you. Those are the ones that us, on the professional side, want to back, want to write letters for, want to encourage and support and, promote. So it does starts now, and it will bleed over into your professional life if you continue to feed it and cultivate it. So, yeah, this is great. This is a great topic. I think it's something that is absolutely paramount in the workplace and even in your professional life, or your personal life, sorry, you have to show up and you have to be present all the time. So, we're kind of wrapping up, but did you have any last minute kind of words of wisdom or advice for our students as they start to kind of hone this skill and really kind of perfect it?
Yeah, I would say just get started, and that's the biggest thing that I can tell anybody is find opportunities to just get out there and work. And sometimes that seems really simple-minded, but just getting out there and take any opportunity that you can. As you mentioned earlier, we have a newborn baby at home, and life changes and it comes at you fast. And I like to think back to the time when I was in college. I'm like, what? I had a job, I worked 40 hours a week, and I went to college. And I had plenty of good times while I was there. And I think, what did I do with all of my free time? Because now I barely have that. So when I have opportunities, it's much more difficult. I have to think about 10 different things of can I take that opportunity to go do this? So, but I'm so grateful that I got started my freshman summer and honestly through high school, taking any job, any internship I could, because more importantly than learning what I like to do, I quickly learned the things I did not like to do. So,
Important.
as you mentioned, I've had all kinds of experiences, and I'm a millennial. I'm in the job hopping generation, and it's a good way to quickly understand, hey, this is a good fit for me, something like this. And it has been a very clear path and like working for the Bucks, understanding I wanted to be in sports, but I didn't necessarily want to be in professional sports. That was an eye-opening experience for me. I like to watch football on the weekends, so I didn't want to work in it. And that was something I would have never thought of before actually being there. And every position after that made me realize, okay, hey, this is something I enjoy, and these are the things I really don't enjoy. What's that next job? What are the parts of that next job that I don't want to do, and what are the parts that I do want to do? Because you have to be able to find that true passion. But as you mentioned earlier, there's so many people telling you you have to find your purpose, and there's so many college grads coming out thinking, I need to find my purpose in my first ever job, and that's just not extremely feasible. That's more of a unicorn moment. So you have to be able to be willing to work hard for a few years and find those small portions that lead you to your purpose. And once you get into a position that you can find that, that's when you can really find your flow state and just really start to have fun when you're working those 40 to 80-hour weeks. If you're doing what you love, it's absolutely worth it.
It is. It is. That's a great point that you make about not only finding what you like, but also what you don't like. And that's huge to be able to say, hey, I tried it, didn't like it. Like I love teaching, but I would not teach elementary. That is not in my wheelhouse. I like an older crowd that gets my sarcasm, that will, actually laugh along with me versus like a little one. So I knew I didn't like that. But great advice, Alex. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights on this topic, which I think is just super important, no matter what generation you are, whether you're a boomer. I'm a proud Xer, millennials, Zen, Z, whatever they are, just you have to be present and you have to be in it. So great topic. Thank you again. And thank you, students, for joining us. If you have any questions, please let us know. I can connect you with Alex if you wanted to chat more about this topic or anything about Visit Central Florida Sports. But other than that, have a wonderful day. If you need attendance, the QR code is on the screen. I also put the URL in the chat pod that you can click if you're on your phone. So thank you again, everybody. See you next week. Alex, or actually, no, Thanksgiving. So have a great Thanksgiving. And students, I'll see you back in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.